So it's his birthday that way. But, and I'll let him introduce the title since I don't have it on the side.
Okay. Which one do I do? I just pushed.
Aerospace, whatever.
Excellent. Yeah. Okay, so I'm actually not 100% sure about the title of this lecture either, but it's something about, I think, why football matters, and it's the life of an adolescent. It's the life of an adolescent football player. And first of all, I just want to say thank you guys for being here.
Sorry.
I love these soapboxes.
Oh.
I love it enough that I'm planning to go directly home from this to spend my birthday with my parents and my grandparents and my brother who's got his high school prom tonight. And so I'm excited to do that. But, you know, out of all the things I'd like to do on my birthday, a soapbox is one of them. And so I intentionally, of course, chose to do a soapbox for that reason. And also, this is another little caveat here too, but I actually started off this year with a lecture, with a soapbox about board games and fascination with them. It's kind of fun. I think this is the last week that we're doing soapboxes, so I've officially done the first soapbox of this year and the last one, which is kind of somewhat intentional, but it's a good thing. The other thing I'll throw out there too is this. I've been to Slovakia actually on 2 different occasions. It's one of the best places in the world, special place in my heart. I think she did a good job of selling it in the last lecture, but I keep using the lecture and reading soapbox. She did a great job in her last soapbox talking about it, but I would even just throw my word of approval and say, hey, if her experience wasn't enough for you and you're really considering it, I've got some opinions about it, and it's a top place to go as well, too. So, with all that being said, let's get into the topic of discussion for today. And what I'm particularly interested in is the future of football. And if we, we just think about what football, when we think about football, we think about this stuff. We think about, I think usually in the media, national media today, there's a lot of talk about CTE, there's a lot of talk about concussions, there's a lot of talk about domestic violence, like with Ray Rice and with other people not being able to contain their football aggression that's required to really succeed at the highest level, and they've been unable to contain that in the world of football, and have said, pushed it outside and into their wives and their family. And domestic violence is really a big issue in the NFL today, and so I think that's what comes to a lot of people's minds as well, too. And those are some of the things that when I think about football, I think about it hitting the news as bad. I'd like to ask you guys just really quickly, when you guys hear the word football and National Football League, what are some of the kind of images that come to your head? And would you describe them, would you describe your viewpoint on football as overall positive or overall generally negative? What would you guys say?
Loud rednecks.
Loud rednecks. Okay. That, I would assume, is that positive or negative?
I'll let you guess on that.
Okay.
I'd say that's positive.
What's positive about it?
About what?
About football.
Oh, football? Positive about it is that it people who don't have a family has a group of brothers that they could depend on and have a sense of family ship and stuff like that.
What else? What else comes to people's mind when football?
I see it as slightly negative because it's overall enjoyable. It's right here, but it's those kind of things are kind of hard to ignore. It's not just that those things happen. It's especially with CTE, a lot of that stuff is carried by the National Football League, the people that are being affected by it. And so it's kind of hard to not see the NFL as a whole and football as a whole as something ultimately slightly negative.
I don't know about national football, but when I think of football in general, I think positive just as a community event.
Yeah.
Like the Friday night football, the Sunday whole day football event. I just like community building, something that everybody in the community can get together.
This is also kind of more of a football general thing. This doesn't always apply, but it kind of associated with sexism because all the football
Yes.
players
It's incredible how, even as you guys are talking, I'm going to be hitting on every single one of those issues today, too. I talked about, I had on my list, there's 4 things that I generally hear about football, and I was like, okay, football is a negative experience. We talked about CTE, we talked about domestic violence. There's also this exclusiveness, there's only boys can play, girls are pretty much excluded, and even within boys, there's this attitude, I think, of there's only a select portion of men that will do it. And it's almost attributed, at least I played football, so I was in kind of that circle, but from what I've heard from people that would say they were outside the circle, is that there was this sense of there was these men were masculine, and I wasn't adopted into that elite club. You know what I'm saying? And there was kind of that exclusive attitude as well, too. Like, you got to fit in our circle. And by the way, our circle is built on principles of powerful, you know, manly men that tackle other people and, you know, and do kind of run man things together. And so I think that, and so if someone wasn't interested in that, I feel like there's probably a sense of exclusive, like you're not part of this club. So I said that's generally a negative experience. I think people come away from football as well. And then there's also this one called where, you know, people always say that athletes are paid more than the more contributing members of society, which is, you know, a true fact. But also, if you're going to say, I mean, out of all those things, I'm like, yeah, those things are real. That one bugs me a little bit because I'm like, well, if we're going to throw out football, we got to throw out everybody that does entertainment industry. You know, it's not just the athletes that are getting paid too much. It's not like, you know, Peyton Manning getting paid more than Barack Obama, for instance, is an injustice to society, as much as Taylor Swift getting paid more than perhaps Peyton Manning doing the same thing. So, but anyway, those are kind of the 4 negative experiences I have about football. And I respond to each of these things, for the sake of these things, but I won't. I think the discussion about, you know, football, there's going to be an ongoing discussion about if football should be allowed at any level, and it's going to be a major issue going forward. I personally think in the next 50 years we'll make a lot of decisions about, especially with the CTE stuff coming on, we're going to make a lot of decisions about what football is going to look like in the future. And I think that there's a lot of words I hear thrown around in circles in ESPN and even amongst, like, you know, my lunchroom conversations with guys that like to play football. There's potential that even in the years in the future there might not be a football. I think we've heard about it that extreme. I think we've heard about it like it's just going to go business as normal. It's an industry that's making a ton of money, and those, you know, corporations just don't, you know, jump out of the blue anytime soon. So there's a wide range of what's going to happen. And what I'm finding out is that, you know, the majority of the people making the decisions are going to be people that did not play football in high school, you know, or middle school or at any level. And that's even shown in a lot of just the ways the NFL is running today. You know, Roger Goodell, who's the NFL commissioner, never played professional, never played college football, and I'm not 100% sure, but I don't even know if he played high school football as well too. And there's a lot of, and this is not a problem, you know, for me. I just noticing that, you know, there's an ongoing trend of like women that are in the NFL today. Like there's the first female referee and coaches, which is great. Miami Dolphins, who I'm supporting on my watch and my shirt. Their vice president of operations is a woman named Donna Fonte, and my personal opinion, she's doing quite all right with our team. Excited for her chances next year. And again, none of that's a problem. I don't care if, you know, women have hands in the sport of football. It's just that what I'm saying is the future is probably going to be largely decided by people and by politicians and by people within football who didn't play football themselves. And so I think that when we, you know, in this ongoing discussion of what should football look like in the future, we've got to have not only opinions of people that did not play and have the outsider perspective that's immensely valuable to the discussion, especially since a lot of, you know, players would not, that have concussions would continue to play. You know, I can hear these stories a lot. If you're involved in sports circles at all, like some players will just keep playing even if they're injured or whatever else. And so we need people from outside of that perspective to say, hey, buddy, you might not be ready to play this game. We need the outsider perspective, but also we need the insider perspective. We need the understanding of people who play football themselves. And that's something that I think I have to offer and something I want to spend a little bit of time talking today. And so I want to present my adolescent experience with football. And I'm going to ask maybe a couple other people in the audience who play football about their experiences, and then even ask you guys at the end, you know, with our experiences, how do we approach this discussion? What should the future of football look like going forward? So, you know, I was really inspired. This is a really strange source for inspiration, but this guy right here, his name is, I can't even pronounce his name, Randy Posh. He is a professor at the University of Virginia, and he is a computer science professor. And he was renowned in the early 2000s for a speech he did called The Last Lecture. You guys have got nothing else to do tonight. This guy was, what did he do? He worked for Disney, he worked for Electronic Arts, he worked for Google. I mean, he was a very well-known name in the computer science circle. And you know, he is diagnosed with a fatal cancer. And he decides to give one last lecture at the University of Virginia. And in this last lecture, he talks about a lot of inspirational life lessons he learned. It's just kind of a reflection on my life. And the crowd is very much into it. There's a large audience that comes for this last lecture. And instead of course, talking about his computer science experience, he talks about what matters to me in my life. And so what he does is he walks through each of his childhood dreams. He talks about how he's been able to fulfill them. He talks about how he was in a zero gravity environment, and how he got to manipulate a couple of lots to get in there. One of his childhood dreams was to be a Disney Imagineer, and he got to go ahead and do that as well when he worked for Disney. Another thing that he would like to do is he wanted to offer a world encyclopedia article, which, he mentions, he's like, yeah, you can tell the nerds are, like this guy he's not a person that you would ever think to be associated with football. I think about, and not that, that's generally the case, but when you think computer science, Disney Imagineer, world encyclopedia author, you don't necessarily think about football. But, which was so strange to me, but another thing on his childhood dreams list is that he wanted to be in the NFL as a kid. And and he mentions many times, I was the smallest guy out there, I really had no place being on a football field. But he does mention that he learned tons of life lessons from football. He mentions teamwork, sportsmanship, perseverance, and persistence, all these things that are valuable for life. But then he also mentions that he got more out of not fulfilling this dream of making the NFL than the fulfillment of any of these other dreams I mentioned. And so, that kind of struck me as it's an interesting point to make. And he also mentioned that he's the most comfortable on a football field, which is, again, is so strange because he's only lived about 5 years of his life on a football field and many other years behind a computer and doing a lot of fascinating work as a computer scientist, but yet he would say that he felt most comfortable on a football field. And then, he even said when he works on a problem, he tosses a football around to himself, and we're going to try to do that for the rest of the lecture too. Because I like the idea of it too. If you ever get a chance where you just walk around thinking about working on a problem, flipping a football around yourself is pretty good to do, and just as a good way to, I guess, relieve stress. And so that's what he did. He was very intent on football, having a place in the lecture, his last lecture of his life, the most important thing, talking about his life goals and dreams. And so for some strange reason, this nerd loved football, And so this got me to think about, this guy is probably the person I was least likely to expect have football making a significant contribution in his life. But he had it, and I think many other people have it. And so that's where I even try to lead into my experiences too with football. Now, I talk to people, I say to people sometimes, well, let me say this, I do a bunch of manual labor jobs myself. And so I've worked as a lawnmower for 2 years, I've worked as a housekeeper for 1 year, and they're jobs that are pretty manual labor-esque, and so once you get the job down, you generally can do it without thinking about doing the job, and so that's kind of good for me, because I'm a person that my mind likes to wander, and I find myself usually thinking about 1 of 5 topics. I usually think about, what's the next step in my personal, walk with my religion, with my faith. I want to be a pastor when I get older, and so I have been preparing a couple of sermons in my head that I've got ongoing, and I'm always trying to add new data or new information based on life experiences. So doing some sermon prep. I think about my major. I think about the nature of history and just kind of different stories from history, and also just trying to think about what is history, how does it play into my thought process as I get older in my collegiate career. I think about whatever girl I'm interested in at the time, and then I think about football. And this is so strange for me because when I was in high school, I did a lot of different activities. I did football, I did baseball, I did choir, I was in debate, I was in student council, and honestly, out of all 5 of those things, football was the thing I was probably the worst at. But it was also the thing that I ended up devoting the most time and the most energy to, and then honestly, probably the thing I enjoyed the most, even though when I was playing, you might not have been able to get me to say that. So football is so important to me that it would even come up when I'm thinking about nothing. And all those things that I mentioned, there's things I somewhat kind of have a future in. I don't have a future in football at all. But yet it always is in my mind going forward. And I said, well, why is that the case? And I'm a person that also puts things in the list. And so I thought about what are my 5 best feelings I've ever had. And I think 2 of them are innately religious, knowing the Lord personally, and seeing somebody else have a unique relationship, have a supernatural breakthrough. Those are 1A and 1B in my life. But the 3 others are tackling somebody, are catching a football, and playing Madden 06 on the Xbox 360.
Yes!
Yeah, that was a video game experience I never had before. The graphics were brand new. My mom didn't let me play video games very often as a kid, and then we played the newest Madden game, and the Dolphins were good that year, and it was in 97. I'm like, man, this was freaking awesome. It was an overload experience for my 8-year-old self, and it was it's a top 5 experience of my life. Now, of course, I'm overrating those things a little bit, but for for the sake of this lecture. But of course, like, it's so strange that three of some of the 5 best experiences I've ever had in my life are about football. And even to this day, when I try to talk about how much football means to me, I can't express myself entirely. It's like words often fail me. And so sometimes when I describe football to somebody else, I have to just like say, you know what, I can't do anything else but believe that I'm trying to tell a story about how much I like football. You know? So it has a special place in my heart. And so, and that goes back to even my elementary years as a young kid. Now, I grew up in a town called Dillon, Montana, where we had, Montana school system is a little bit different than a lot of things we do. One of the things that we did that's different was that we had 3 different recesses at elementary school. And so, like 2 15-minute recesses and then like 1 long lunch break, which would be a 50-minute break. And every single time, kids would play football. All the boys would just go out and play football. I didn't join this my first couple of years. I started to play in 4th grade, where a bunch of guys would be, one kid would just be a quarterback, and a bunch of other kids would get on the field, they'd just run routes and try to throw them the ball, 4 downs or whatever. The rules are just whatever you want to do, whenever you make them up, whenever, and most of the kids are just okay with it. You're just playing football. And what I love about this experience is that, like, one, it set this desire in my heart to always play pickup football for the rest of my life. Even, even as I'm here at school, like what I usually do about, like, on Fridays is me and a bunch of my buddies would call up a bunch of people and try to play a football game about once every Fridays in the fall. It's freaking awesome to play football with a bunch of guys, at this point. At this point in our careers, especially since, like a lot of us played in high school, and Friday night kind of has that special, like we were talking about earlier, that football feeling. And so we just get to kind of recreate that. And so that's something that I still even do to this day. But what I also liked about it is that everyone would grow to love the sport. Everybody in my class played the sport. The majority. I mean, like we had, I listed 3 people here that just you never think would play football, but ended up doing it during that experience. I had my best friend in Montana when I was growing up. He was a guy who now has spent thousands of dollars on Magic the Gathering. He's got a band scholarship at Montana State University. He quite short and has really a lack of athletic skills. And I'm not dogging on him. This is all true. And not even saying that these people can't play football or enjoy it, because obviously Randy Paulsch did it, and he wanted to write a World Book Encyclopedia article as a kid. But this one of my favorite memories of my life is watching my best friend, who just had a very lack of athletic ability, catch an interception and run the entire length of the field during one of my 7th grade football games. So, I'll never forget the experience, and I actually was more happy watching him do that than me scoring any other touchdown in my life, including, when I played, including like when we actually played paths too. There's another kid named John Kent, and this kid is seriously, when we're all in 7th, but this kid's probably 65 pounds, tiny man, and is nerd to the core. Like his parents enjoyed the fact that nerd is the best word to describe him, and I'm not even being demeaning. Like that's what they wanted him to be. So this kid has got glasses. He's got this he looks like that kid from what's that Christmas special, Christmas Story? That gets packed up. Like this, his parents would bring him to school every day. So he's got this huge freaking coat on him, and he's walking around. He can barely walk around, and he's got a 4.0 average. Lives to do his homework. Lives to just is the biggest nerd you possibly could imagine. This kid would play football every single week. With every single time we played in elementary school, this kid would play football. And gosh, he could catch the ball every once in a while. He couldn't catch with his hands, but he'd catch like this, and he'd start running with it. It was awesome. I really enjoyed watching John play. We got to the point where even our 7th grade history teacher would come out and play with us. And we would have our 7th grade quarterback be on one team, and our teacher would be on the other team. They'd each be captains every week. It was awesome. We had this little special time. So this pickup football experience was really fun, and it really built a love for the game in every single person. So when it came time to be in 7th grade, which was the very first time we ever got to play football, we had 40 kids sign up. Now my class had 83 people on it, and about 42 of those were girls. There was about, really, I'm exaggerating, but there were about 5 guys in the entire school that did not play football that year. Just saying, when I played in high school, we had 1,500 people in my entire school, and we had a 40-man football team. And then when I lived in Montana for our 7th grade football team, out of 83 students, we had 40 guys play football. So we just had an incredible tournament. People loved to play football during that time. And what's so awesome about playing with Paz the first time is it's just a pure expression of what we got to do every week. We just got to we got to do it. We got to actually tackle somebody instead of slapping somebody below the waist and saying you're down. Like you got to bring somebody to the ground. Just a freaking awesome experience. My very first play, I'll never forget. My very first play ever playing, I forced a fumble. We had this huge kickoff team. I go running down the field at top speed. Too excited, completely lack of control. You're supposed to have lanes when you're running down the field. I totally lost everything. Just went straight to the guy and forced a fumble my first play. But it was so awesome to finally, after years of not playing, be able to express the side of you that had been withheld from you for such a long time. So it was also a lot of fun too. We only played about 5 games because that's about what schools in Montana can afford. And it was a goal of mine because I knew I was moving. I was moving to Springfield, Missouri at the end of that year. It was a big goal for me to score a touchdown in every single one of those 5 games. And the first 3 games I was able to score a touchdown. I played tight end, and so I was 135 pounds at that point. I hit puberty before most of my friends did. So I was a big enough kid that it'd probably take 2 guys to tackle me, and that wasn't because I was some special kid. I just happened to hit puberty before everybody else did. And so had 3 touchdowns in the first 3 games. 4th game, no touchdowns. It's like, oh no, the streak is at risk. And my coach, although my coach the next game knows I'm going for this. I've never told him. I think my dad told him. That's how he knew. But my coach made sure that I'd be able to play. I'd be able to get 2 touchdowns. So I score one early in the first half, and then we're up by 30 points. And then we run a play that's almost designated, that kids at middle school level really don't know how to guard, but we knew how to play. And so he calls that play when we're up by 30 points, and we pass the ball over a long distance. I catch it, I score a touchdown for 5 touchdowns in 5 games. It's like that was an awesome experience for me to be able to do. And the other cool thing is just this coach really realized the power of football and the joy that it can be had on the field. Of course, some people can look at that situation and say, he's running out the score, making people look bad. No, well, I think what happened was, he realized that this game was awesome, and some kids can really enjoy it if you just let them do it. And so one of his favorite things to do, especially when we were up by many points, is put kids that had never played in particular positions in those positions. So this kid named Corey Caldwell, who was, again, another 75-pound kid, and super short. I couldn't tell you how short he was. But he was the worst person to put at defensive tackle I've ever seen in my entire life. Coach puts him at defensive tackle, and he makes a stop in the backfield. It was wow, that's freaking awesome. He was a kid named Ronnie Freeman, who was another kid that just really didn't have a lot of athletic ability to put a kick. Another kid named Kyle, put him at punter. I had a best friend, one of my best friends was a 75-pound kid that now runs at University of North Dakota, North Dakota State University cross country. And so his body type is that of a cross country person, really tall, really thin. Coach runs a 2-point conversion for us to just throw a fade route to him in the back of the end zone. It was awesome. My favorite place though is I had a buddy named Taylor Cashmore, and another kid whose nickname on the team was Buffalo. Because that was the size of his body. And what we like to do is we like to put these guys at full or running back, and then just run it in on 2-point conversions. You know what I'm saying? And so there were about 2 or 3 times we kept trying to do this. We finally got one kid, this big 250 pounds is big, so you know what I'm saying? And this kid busts through and he gets 2-point conversions. So we just get to see the fun of what football can be. Dang, wow. I'm expressed. Yeah, wow, that's really fast. And so I had a really fun time playing in 7th grade. 8th grade was really good for me as well, too. There was a big adjustment. I moved from Springfield, Missouri from Dillon, Montana to Springfield, Missouri, which, was a huge change of culture. Montana's got its very own set conservative background culture, and Missouri is not necessarily the most liberal place in the world or most unique, but it definitely is a change from Montana. So I moved there, and I don't know nobody, and football really was my introduction into that culture because we started football before school even started, just for the summer camps. And so, I got to meet football, and by the time school came around, I already had 40 friends that I was hanging out with, every day, And so football was that medium for me for being able to work it. And this is an interesting point. I've kind of discovered more and more as I get older. But when I grew up in Montana, there was nobody on my team in my life that was African American. I'm serious. There was our school demographics was 98% white, and then 2% Latino, and they were usually undocumented workers that had come to work on ranches. Our diversity is nothing at this place. And so I grew up in a background where my parents weren't racist, and there was no possibility, I think, that I would turn I would be racist, but like there was this, I was coming from an environment where I had to respond to a different culture, something I wasn't completely aware of in the first place. And actually sports was my only place for that to have happened, my first place to see that follow through. And so, like I said, the preschool friendships developed, and it kind of, I don't even know, I don't, this one's hard to speculate on because, I don't know how I could have ended up elsewhere, but long story short, like, I just developed friendships with black people. and I'm not sure how quickly that would have developed if football had not been in place. And so that was just an interesting little thing that 8th grade football, there was a big change for 8th grade football in my life. And in high school, I'm trying to run up pretty quickly because, I'm understanding the time is running pretty short. But high school was really cool because, like, this high school team that I played on, the green team, we had a 58-game losing streak going into, like, seriously, ESPN coverage, like, bad stuff, before I even started playing, we ended up breaking the streak from 8th grade year, and it was national headlines for the 58-game losing streak to finally be over. And so, I come into a place where the whole thing is defeated. Like, our culture it's non-existent. And one of my favorite things about football is that I got a chance to be part of something that was bigger than myself. We got to change the culture during this time. And so that happened throughout all the years. With freshman year, you're learning how to, for freshman year with that in mind, like you're not necessarily playing a lot, but you are learning how to interact with these kids that are juniors and seniors and have gone under radical, like, body transformational changes that are way different than we play. Our junior running back my freshman year could squat 560 pounds. And I'm coming in squatting maybe 200 pounds, and this kid is huge. And so, but football forces you to interact with the most toughest, the biggest guys, the people that would probably be the most intimidating to talk to. You have to do that before school even starts again. So football provided that for me. Because I got to be able to make friends with kids that were like I never would have approached otherwise, My sophomore year, I write this up to the toughest experience of my life. Hardest thing I ever did was playing football. We were doing practice, and we did these, in the month of June, we did like kind of workouts where you weren't playing football, you didn't play pads. Camp hadn't started yet, but you were doing kind of conditioning and strength conditioning stuff to like get you ready to play. And so the very first day of football camp, the coach loved to it was mandatory that you would go during the month of June to work out, but it was strongly suggested, And so the coach would make sure that the very first day of July, the kids who had not been in the June practices would feel the pain of not doing these things that weren't mandatory, but you kind of did whatever you wanted during the month of June, so you better get in shape fast. And so just that first day of July was always heralded as, oh my God, this is going to be freaking hard. I remember one time, I was running around, we had 6 different conditioning stations, and we had to go through it once. At the end of it, I was like, oh, I've got nothing left in me to be able to do this, and then now let's do it again. And it's not like this, it's not anything the Navy SEALs would go through, but as a 14-year-old kid, I was like, oh my God, this is the hardest thing I've ever done in my life. And not only did that create toughness and persistence, but during that point, I remember thinking to myself, I would give up anything to give me some air right. And in that moment, I started going through the things in my head, and I'm like, this is what I would give up, this is what I would give up. And at the end of it, looking back on that time, I'm partially ashamed of the things I chose to give up, in my head. Of course, I didn't have to give it up, but the payoff just wasn't nearly that much. And so this experience has kind of helped me afterwards to look at and say, hey, this is what was most important in my life, and to reinvigorate my intentionality so that if I ever, do something as lighthearted conditioning as that was again, I won't ever drift from that kind of purpose. There were the things that I would consider to be the most purposeful in life. So that was very important. My junior year, I know I'm running low on time, but I've only got about 2 more slides, or 1 more slide to finish up. But I took on this older brother role, and you guys can see me behind there. You can see my brother in the front. I took on the older brother role in 2 different ways. One to everybody else on the team, and then one to literally my brother on the field. My brother's always had this incredible self-discipline that I have no idea where it comes from, because I frankly don't have it like he does. But he would come out into the varsity games and play with the varsity. He would come out to varsity practices as an 8th grader and come out and practice and do all the strength stuff and the conditioning stuff as an 8th grader. And I'm tired, and my brother's over there more tired than I am, and then pushing through with me. You know, it's like that was really helpful. Like, you know, one, I don't let my brother, not the younger brother, like, you know, take beat me out in my own game, but also like to also just to be there for him, just to kind of build that friendship and that communication. And so, you know, he just finished his last game this fall, and you know, and he's crying at the end of it because when you play your last game, I don't know if you all played, but if you play your last game, that's a big deal. And it's sad, and it's like I still remember the time I took off my pads, walking off the field the last time, like knowing it's it. And so my brother finishes up his career. He was balling. He's crying really hard. My brother doesn't cry very much. He's crying really hard at this experience. And everybody you see in that picture is at that game. You know, my grandfather, who was a football coach for many years, played in the 1950s. You know, my two grandparents behind my dad, and you can see my mom, my dad, and me. And so my brother's crying really hard. And my mom, you know, doesn't try to comfort him, but she just tries to give him a hug. And my brother gives her a side hug. You know, just saying, hey, I love you, thanks for being here for me. He doesn't talk to my grandparents who are in the background, and he hugs my dad, he hugs him for a really long time. You know, and then he hugs me, and he hugs me for an even longer amount of time, just crying. And it's this sin, and for me it was this realization of, like, Christopher, you've been there with me, and like there was just this intense bonding of, like, we relate on this experience of football. You know, and that's why I hug my dad, because, like, we relate to this experience of football. Mom didn't, you know. That was a place that, like, my brother and I have special, as we played for this team in this field, and practice and sweat at the same time that we did. So it creates a lot of, like, brotherly bonds, and it also creates a lot of brotherly bonds between me and my brother. And it also, you know, works with other people as well too. I love, some of my favorite things were working with the sophomores and the freshmen. The sophomores and the freshmen, like during these off-season activities or during the rest of the season. Because honestly, your sophomore year sucks. You know, you're playing JV, but you're also playing scout team. You know, and I joked during my sophomore year, I was pancaked, or I was put on my back more than any other person in Parkview history. They should actually be putting me on the board for, like, most times pancaked in a single season, including practice. Like, you know, you just get your butt whooped during that time. And so I really, like, there's this part in me to, like, emphasize working with these sophomores and freshmen again. And so that opened up my heart during that portion of my life in my junior year. And then my senior year, you know, I took on the older brother role again. I invested even more into the sophomores, and actually, I ended up being voted team captain for that reason. I think I didn't have a lot of, like, really deep, intimate relationships in the beginning with my peers, but as the season dragged on, that became, I'm about to talk about really briefly. The season dragged on, that happened. But you know, when I was with but the sophomores, I think I got almost every single sophomore to vote for me as team captain. I wasn't trying to. It was just, you know, learning to invest in people that desperately needed help. And so that was a really fun, awesome experience for me to invest in the community. And also, as I just mentioned earlier, you just build a lot of friendship with the seniors. Like, you're on this trip of, this is the last time we'll ever play football. This is our last game. This is our last home game. This is our last game against this school. You know, like, we're going to remember this forever. And so, you know, you got to connect with seniors on that. And we also did a nice little senior retreat towards the end of our time. We just, you know, the seniors and us went out on a special weekend just to hang out with each other. And so, like, that developed bonds at that point as well too. And the coolest thing, I think I'm going to try to end on this, the coolest thing that football that probably did, were the two coolest things. First one was just that it brought me together with people I never would have talked with otherwise. You know, there was really no connection with me and a lot of guys outside of football. And the majority of people that were my friends that, like, work in my church, and they were part of a small group at church, and we just got to hang out and make Christian jokes and all sorts of, like, dumb stuff like that. And, like, that's what I really built my friendship around in high school. And then these guys I'm playing football with, and that's just not the way. You know, like, they were, you know, the locker room, you know, conversations are all about their sexual exploits, and all about, like, you know, just as many bad words in one sentence as possible. You know, like, that's the conversations that are going on there. And I just never would have, you know, wanted to be around these guys, and they probably never would have. They just couldn't find a lot to relate on. You know what I'm saying? But football brings people that do not have, like, these relationships with each other as well too. And so, like, it just, yeah, that was just something that, like, it built a lot of really good friendships for me, and I think it does with a lot of other people as well. The last thing, and this is the last thing I promise I'm going to say, is that being a part of something that was bigger than yourself was really awesome. Getting a chance to rewrite history was really awesome. I said my senior year, you know, what we got to do is we went undefeated at home. The first 6-0 start to start season. Remember, this is all in the backdrop of a 58-game losing streak. You know, we had the first playoff victory in 30 years for our school. You know, best season in 30 years. And it actually set the course for my brother's team to push farther into the playoffs than we ever have. And they've broken way more records than we ever have. And eventually, in fact, last year, lost in the districts to the eventual state champion. You know, so it's like, it's just a different level. And so anyway, football for me has just been, as I've explained in a rather lengthy amount of time, you know, there's just a lot of really good things that have like, I look back on even 3 years away, and maybe even in the, you know, in the future 10 years away, and we'll be able to say, there's a ton of stuff that was really beneficial in my life. Like all these life experiences that I can relate with, you know, this guy, this computer scientist in the University of Virginia, you know, like we can't relate on the fact that I've gone out and done some Disney engineer stuff. Like we can't go out and relate on the fact that, you know, he went to school in Arkansas and dealt with all the stuff that goes on in Arkansas. But we can relate on the fact that we both feel most comfortable with what we do, you know, and so that's my experiences. I think normally I've talked too long, which is a tradition of mine. If you guys want more, if you guys want more conversations, talk to football players you know in high school. Talk to people that, you know, that play football in high school and ask them what they are. Because honestly, I think it's going to be your opinion in the future. I mean, I think that honor students are going to be movers and shakers in the world in the next, you know, in the next couple of decades. And you guys might have to say something on this issue. What do we do with this CTE stuff? What do we do with the dangers that football provides? And I just would encourage you guys to seek after people who have played and ask them what their experiences are. And I don't know, shape your policy, shape your viewpoints, and I don't know, give it a chance. Thanks for letting me talk. I appreciate it.